Yuzuru Hanyu looking back at the cherished photos of the Aiku no Kaseki legend. The problem of separation from parents and children is common in the world, but when it comes to Prince on Ice, it can be more complicated than the world. National star Yuzuru Hanyu, who has not only impressive results but also impeccable appearance and personality, won the People's Honor Award in 2018. Commenting reward with everyone. There is also a desire to carefully protect the statue of Hanyu Yuzuru that people have. Because he cared a lot about his fans, he said he wanted to get married at the age of 25 or 26, but he was careful not to ruin his image. So, you must have been very careful with this flash wedding. For the rest of my life, I will continue to live forward with all my might along with everyone who supports me in skating. That's behind 5 successful performances of the prologue. Thank you for your hard work. I would like to start the conversation right away with a story about the performance according to the set list. First, how do you feel now after performing Seimei program in your ice show, which is more like a real competition program? There was a sense of intense tension. There are not as many places to rest here as in the original program, so I also changed how I distribute my forces. In any case, I wanted to do something difficult, and also add complexity that only a professional can do, so I increased the number of triple axels to 3, and increased the level of rotation. On the other hand, I decided to go back a bit to the set of steps that I originally intended to use, so the result was a professional level Seimei program. Even though the set changed, I approached the performance in a completely competitive mode, and when I did not make a single mistake, I was just happy. There were still many other programs left after that, so I couldn't lose focus, but I was so happy that I wanted to make a victory gesture with all my heart. And even though I didn't score any points, I still felt the tension, something special that can only be felt in a space close to the competition, and it was in this special space that I experienced joy and a sense of achievement. I would like to continue this initiative similar format in the future. 5 videos were shown during the performance. All of them seemed very emotional to me even at the first viewing, and the more I watched them, the more I felt that I was getting an even greater effect from them. Did you yourself determine the composition, music and frames for each of the videos? I created videos by selecting various videos myself and making demos, which I then used again and again as a basis for making adjustments. Before the performance in Yokohama, I worked on them until the morning of the first day. Even during the production of Prologue, I thought that I would like to collect and insert music and videos from past programs between rentals, show videos, giving each one its own meaning. In the opening video for Romeo and Juliet, I imagined the Olympics in Sochi, the road leading to the Olympics in Pyeongchang. But the song that feels the tension of that period, I go out on the stage, close up, and then I'm heading to the Pyeongchang Olympics, the next performance with Seimei. This is how the composition turned out. There are several scenes of jumping on the ice in the video that express things that are not usually seen during the warm-up, such as the images of failure that actually run through the mind, and the moments when these images are corrected and everything falls into place. It seems to me that everyone thought that they would no longer have the opportunity to watch the warm-up when I became a professional. However, I warm up even before an ice show just as thoroughly as I do in competition, so that's why, I can't show you my entire warm-up live. I wanted you to feel its tension and anticipation in a 6-minute warm-up, like on Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. The composition was composed in this way for this reason. The song Sasanko was also the theme song for the Pyeongchang Olympic and Paralympic Games on NHK TV broadcasts, and every time I listened to it, I was reminded of myself when, before the Pyeongchang Olympics, I was injured and in great pain. However, when I listened to it again to create the prologue, the lyrics of the song touched me, because they seemed to touch literally everything that was in my life in figure skating. So I used this song and made a video sequence as if today's me is talking to the me who went on this path at the age of 9, and the me who, having passed this path, challenges the quadruple axel. I wanted to create something like this and more, but I had video restrictions, so I had to find material myself that I could use as much as possible, and I thought over my image in the video in the most careful way. The process of setting jumps is a process of failure. In order to succeed, you have to go through failure again and again. Usually, when you create a piece, you don't often use what didn't work. I think that a composition like this video where you try again and again, fail, laugh bitterly, get hurt a lot, get up again and get hurt again, can only be done if you do it yourself. I think that only I could choose these scenes of injuries and falls. I express the dream that I managed to comprehend by falling again and again, and the story that will continue, in which I will continue to try again and again. In Beijing, I said that I was not rewarded, in Pyeongchang that I refused happiness, in Sochi that I was powerless, but now I want to say that thanks to you I was rewarded, and I am happy that I could become your support, even if only a little. The video for the Great East Japan Earthquake, BGM Requiem of Heaven and Earth, has been using scenery footage of the affected areas for a long time. You said that you picked the footage by tearing out your heartache and suffering every day, but I would like to ask you again about your feelings when you edited this video of this length, when you were ready to suffer so much. I created this video sequence in accordance with the mental landscape that I embodied in the Requiem of Heaven and Earth program. In the first half of the video, I expressed this feeling. When the earthquake happened, the tsunami came and the morning came, everything was destroyed and I can't do anything, I can't think, I can't even feel sad, I don't feel anything, and I'm glad that I'm alive and I'm sad that I'm alive. I do not think that there is at least one person who would be pleased to watch these shots. However, when I look back at my life, I understand that this catastrophe is simply inseparable from it. To portray the disaster, I use news footage and photographs taken by television and newspapers, because at that moment I myself did not have time to think about myself or skates, let alone take pictures. I have used images from news bulletins and other sources in the hope of creating an image that will resonate with what I, as a layman, see in the news, and echo the image of the disaster in your mind's eye. I do not want the catastrophe to be forgotten or its image to fade with time, but at the same time I want to forget it and not remember it. However, I think that the person that I am now is definitely a person who experienced March 11, 2011, the date of the Great East Japan Earthquake, and that's why I have these feelings, that's why I went ahead and tried my best. I wanted, even if for a short time, I could convey these feelings to all of you, convey the desire to move forward, so I chose the song and program Requiem of Heaven and Earth as a composition, this video, White Legend from it, and Romeo and Juliet for the strong will to overcome everything. Before this video Requiem of Heaven and Earth at 3 performances in the city of Hachino, you addressed the audience into the microphone. Was it due to the fact that you performed in Tohoku and were supposed to show footage of the disaster there? Because the performance was in Tohoku, I thought that there would be people who were heavily affected by the natural disaster, and I wanted to tell them about the meaning of the video I prepared before this video starts. During the screening on the first day of the show in Hachinoha, the thought of what I wanted to say quickly came over me, so I immediately grabbed the microphone and performed. I was able to do this thanks to employees whom I trust with all my heart, and who were able to respond to my sudden request. Speaking on the first day of the performance in Hachinoha, I realized that no matter how far from the epicenter you lived at that time, even if you did not feel the slightest jolt, even if you only saw it on the news, each of us has a memory 3.11 is present. When I think about it, it seems to me that this is something that we all need to realize, whether we were affected by this disaster or not, whether we did something or not. When I was making this video and when these footage was shown during the show, my own emotional wounds were opened several times, and I felt pain, but I also realized that I was able to accept that I was hurt. At the end of the video, in the middle of the recording of the old performance of Romeo and Juliet, you appeared at the rink in the most dramatic way. Did you come up with such a setting yourself? I came up with it myself, or rather, imagined it. I think the image of Romeo and Juliet from the 2012 World Cup in Nice has remained in the memory of everyone, including me. I wanted to get as close as possible to that image, but at the same time coexist with the world that I express now, and make the program better. I set up this program, making it the subject of such concepts as crawl up, passion and fight. So after the footage of the earthquake and the subsequent White Legend, instead of moving on to my grown-up today's self immediately after that, I wanted to express the strength and fragility of overcoming the catastrophe and realizing it, precisely because I am now the same person as then, and because that my performance includes those days. That's why I chose this setting. A production like this can only be done in your own show, and I am grateful to the staff who immediately understood everything and helped me with it. Before the step sequence at the end of Romeo and Juliet, I thought you actually screamed. Why did you decide to scream for real? Let's start with the fact that in the 2011-12 season, I shouted in this program only twice. At the 2011 Japan Championship and at the 2012 World Championship. At the Japanese Championships, I screamed like I was preparing for the last jump. I really like the way Felipe Candeloro screams. He screamed before the step sequence in the D'Artagnan program, and an image came into my head that would make the program even more realistic, so I screamed before the steps. I also screamed at the World Championships, but it was not like at the Japanese Championships. My body was broken, my ankle was hurting, my strength was running out, but all the jumps were cleanly executed at that moment, and here I was waiting for the last jump, which was riddled with some premonition of a mistake, and found myself screaming. I still wince when I remember that scene. I will never forget the roar of applause and the strength they gave me. I am not the same person now as I was then, but I have already performed many programs on the Prologue show, from Seimei to this program. And I screamed before the steps with a strong desire to continue the fight to the end, and with the feeling that I would fight along with the person that I was then, precisely because I performed when my body was broken. I think that Romeo and Juliet is a program that should have this cry. The next two programs, A Dream That Someday Will End and Spring, Come, also have a new production. Why did you decide to use projection mapping? I have already performed with a little mapping several times. I skated with it during the demonstration show at the Beijing Olympics. When I perform mapping, I change the choreography and the location of the skating depending on the image that is being broadcast at that moment, and I really like this feeling. Because I had that experience, I thought that if the image I see was conveyed through video, then it would be much easier to convey the vision of the entire program as well. That's why I wanted to write with projection mapping, which helps to reveal the depth of the content. Please tell us how you came to cooperate with Mikiko-sensei this time. I have always liked Mikiko-sensei's direction very much, and whenever her work was shown on television, I watched it with sincere delight. When I turned pro, I was offered to perform at the Tokyo Dome, and during the discussion, I received an offer with director candidates. Among the candidates was Mikiko-sensei, and I told her that I would definitely like her to head the production, and the conversation started. For my part, I didn't even dream of working with Mikiko-sensei, so when we met and I asked her to direct the show, I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement from start to finish. It seemed to me that the mapping of the program's A Dream That Someday Will End in Spring, Come helped to visualize the meaning and feelings that you put into these programs. How did you work together with Mikiko-sensei to create these mapping images? First of all, I told her about the theme and plot of the programs, and then she asked me how about expressing it in this way. Then this process was repeated, and as a result we got an extended joint image, and then created on it base picture. To create a picture, it was necessary to shoot rental programs, so that the entire ice rink was constantly in the frame, so we even tried using a drone. We ended up buying a tripod that extends 7.5 meters and shot from a height where the camera touched the ceiling. Thus, we attached a mapping picture to the footage of a program. In the performance, the mapping image and your movements were perfectly connected. It turns out that you combined them with pre-created projections. For example, A Dream That Someday Will End is a program based on various events and mental images associated with your skating. I imagine that as soon as you started skating, your motions intensified and you got into the program. But how did you manage to combine this with the fact that you had to match the mapping picture? In fact, when you are at a point on the ice, you practically do not see the mapping picture. Therefore, I skated as if I was looking at myself from above, and reproduced the images in my head. During the performance in Yokohama, I was more concerned with an objective view, and paid more attention to the conformity of the mapping and maintaining the quality of the performance itself. I was very worried, especially during the first performance, because A Dream That Someday Will End is a program with my own choreography, without jumps and rotations. I was also worried about whether the audience would really like it. At the show in Hachinoha, sometime after the two shows in Yokohama, I tried to give meaning to the mapping. What was important to me was the feeling of writing with him and expressing the program together. Not only did I write on the points that were mapped, but I tried all sorts of things. I dared to get off of it, accelerate and slow down, and sometimes even get ahead of the picture, or, conversely, leave myself behind or let the light in front of me slide by itself. I had the feeling that the range of self-expression for figure skating, or rather Yuzuru Hanyu, had expanded dramatically. What new things did you discover while working with Mikiko-sensei? Figure skating is a form of self-expression with the body, and there are no words, so I think that there are many things that are difficult to convey. Working with Mikiko-sensei allowed me to see my feelings and images in the form of a picture, and I was constantly delighted that I could convey them more easily. However, I never imagined that by doing the prologue I would be able to express myself in such a variety of ways. I sincerely believe that I succeeded because Mikiko-sensei kept an eye on what was going on inside of me, and created the mapping using means of expression that only Mikiko-sensei could use. I would like to come up with more ways of expression that can only be obtained with mapping, and I would like to give more ideas from Yuzuru Hanyu himself, and not just add mapping to Yuzuru Hanyu. Another important thing that I felt while working with Mikiko-sensei is that she is very passionate about my programs. And I realized that this is very important. I entrusted various feelings and memories to my programs, but it is very difficult for another person to understand them and create programs with me. They have feelings and scenes that are hard to put into words, and in the past I have often wondered why I can't convey them. But when I created with Mikiko-sensei, I didn't have such thoughts, and the world that Mikiko-sensei wanted to convey, and the world that was in the program, expanded and interacted, and various ideas came to mind and were finalized. For me, this was the first experience of such a process, and I really enjoyed it and was very happy. Could you please tell us about the theme and plot of the program Dream That Will Someday End? What I show in A Dream That Will Someday End is a world in which those who aspire to their dream failed to realize it, and their dreams came to an end. This is a world where the things that were most treasured, the most important things that were taken for granted, have now disappeared, and the pure heart that lived in pursuit of a dream is now lost, and all feelings are lost. The words of others do not reach me, and even if they do, I don't need them anyway. I'd rather be alone. I want to be alone. I'm too tired to do anything. But there is a light that illuminates my lonely figure, a light that seems to push me, and I turn away from this light, but emotions overwhelm me. I am afraid of not being able to respond to this light. I do not want to betray it, but I am happy with this light that shines on me, and I know that this light gives me more strength than anything else. In the end, I accept this light and entrust it to ice. That's the story. And it's not always the same story. It changed as I skated, and under the influence of mapping, I thought about many things while writing. What were you thinking about when you skated? I imagined that I would not be able to realize my big dream on the dream stage, and that any of my efforts would be useless. To some extent, I thought it meant that my dream which started when I started skating would someday end. And no matter how hard I try, there are things I can't achieve. I thought that no matter how serious I was, and even if I dedicated my life to a dream, there are dreams that I can never achieve. Despite this, I am very happy that so many people came to see the prologue, applied for tickets or watched it live and on TV. Every time this program starts for me with complete desperation, but in the end I absolutely always feel happy. I have always skated for you and intend to continue to do so. With this feeling I always finish this program. In mapping there is a moment when words fall out of the place where you are. Did you choose these words yourself? It was Mikiko-sensei who came up with the words I used to describe my story to her. Both the choice and the arrangement of the words were made by Mikiko-sensei. This is one of my favorite solutions, so much so that when I first saw it, I really almost burst into tears. This scene expresses my feelings. As if after turning away from the light many times, the words poured out of me by themselves. I got the impression that many of these words are connected with water. I want to express this world with the help of ice as water or the surface of water. Final Fantasy X, the original of Dreams That Someday Will End, is an extremely fantasy world with a beautiful image of water, with soul light, so I embodied the image of a skating rink in the form of water and rolling on water, which can only be done with mapping. Now that you have performed your first independent choreography in the program Dream That Will Ever End, what does this program mean for you? I was worried, because in this program there is only skating and self-expression with the body, without jumps and rotations, but thanks to the mapping, I think it has grown into a really good program. There were motions, movements, facial expressions and ways of skating that wouldn't come out without mapping, so it really became something new. I think that the link to the video turned out well too. Before the show starts, Dream Yearning Dreamy Aspiration by Moppy Sound plays, and a strong connection with this program emerges. Dream Longing was created with the vision of shaking off your boyish desire to play in the snow and have fun with your friends. Make your choice, open the door to your dreams, and just move on. Even when the dream is about to disappear, I pick it up and move on. In the end, I already matured after the time of childhood, with a pure heart pick up the snow that I threw away a long time ago, and entrust it to my future self, as a piece of hope filled with my determination and feelings. There was also a sense in a dream that someday end, that it was supposed to be a light of hope for everyone at the end. In it, after I throw away my pure heart and give up feelings, I catch a piece of hope thrown in longing for a dream. These programs carry a lot of meaning, so I would like you to watch them again and again. The Spring Come program has also become a new program in collaboration with Mapping. Theme Spring Come included gratitude, bright future and compassion. There's a story built here too, but I want this program to be truly free, so I don't want to explain it in detail. I have played Spring Come many times, so I wanted to keep her image in your mind, and didn't want to convey too much in the mapping, which I shared with Mikiko-sensei, so we decided to use this form of expression. I wanted you to feel in your heart the change of seasons, cold and warm. In various parts of the show, you performed Biellmann spins. Share your impressions of the restoration of this element. I used to include Biellmann in various programs, so now I wanted to work it out well and skate programs in the correct and complete form. When I started to train him, I couldn't spin well enough, but as I practiced, I got to the point where I felt that I could perform this rotation even better than before. This rotation is a really important element for me now, and for me 9 years old. I heard that in Yokohama and Hachinohe, you had to change the location of the front of the stage, due to the nature of the site. For the performance in Hachinohe, you not only changed the front part, but also the choreography. How do you manage to pay attention to such details? It's not that I pay attention to details, I just want people to see something worthwhile. In a competition, you don't have to think things through like that, but in the show there are moments, poses, elements that look advantageous from any angle. I want the audience to think for a moment what they like. When I participated in competitions, I often focused on the judges. However, now I have a different approach, and various ideas come to my mind. For example, go to the short side of the rink, and express my thought in a different way, or try to change the balance, or express emotions with my back. This happens not only when I'm trying to think of something, but also when I'm exercising. Suddenly, an image appears in front of me, or I see a picture that the viewer seems to be looking at, or I see myself. In a sense, now for me the judges are sitting in all directions and from all sides, and I skate with the hope that my thoughts and skating will penetrate all points of this space. I changed the choreography not because I wanted to change it, but because I had an image of how I wanted it to look, and I moved the way I wanted in response to the music and the program, and used what seemed right to me. I am very happy if you notice such details. I was lucky that in Romeo and Juliet the image, the movements of the body and what I saw objectively coincided quite easily. I changed and refined a lot, thinking it was better to do it this way or that way, so the number of movements increased or decreased depending on the emotions of that day. For change I also tried to change the distance between myself and the audience, and how they perceive the show. I will be glad if you can compare the different perceptions of the show again in the recording. The concept and theme of Prologue was to look back on your life up until today. Now that you've completed the prologue, how do you feel about your life until today? To be honest, if someone other than me came up with a prologue with the concept of such a show, I don't think they would use a similar composition show content. I show an endless number of jumping mistakes in the video, showing how it hurt. In Romeo and Juliet I train with Sachi in mind. It all starts with a 6-minute warm-up, like for the Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. Then Seimei with content for which I had special requirements for quality and complexity. After that I play change in full. If I had not made the video myself, then the images of the earthquake under the Requiem for Heaven and Earth would not have been so realistic, and perhaps there would not have been a Romeo and Juliet in which my feelings were embodied. And also a dream that someday will end in spring, come, and in them longing for a dream in Sasankha. And the last composition is I am invincible, I am the strongest. The clock jumps from 11:11 to 11:12, and the time jumps from prologue to a new story. I think that in my life everything was not so wonderful, sheer failures. Even now, after the Beijing Olympics, it seems to me that Yuzuru Hanyu for many people is an ideal person who never despairs, always looks forward, trains very effectively, and always succeeds. I've had many failures that have led to success, and many failures that have only led to other failures. I'm sure I've made decisions in my life that were wrong. There were things beyond my control that I wished never happened. There were moments when I thought about the fact that fate is so predetermined that I cannot influence it in any way. But I am happy that you are waiting for these programs, that you managed to bring them to so many people, even if there are no visible changes in them at first glance. If even for a moment they remain in your hearts, or you remember them, or just their image comes to your mind, or memories and thoughts overwhelm you, I will be truly happy. I feel that I am not alone, that I can write like this, thanks to the love of so many people, and I am happy. Looking back, I think it was a really good show. I would love to do another show like this one day, but I'm wondering if I can do something better than this. Laughs. So much from my life, from the life of Yuzuru Hanyu, was able to fit into this show. What emotions caused you to cry at the end of the final performance? When I thought that this was it, everything was over, I could not hold back my tears. But I knew that the prologue was leading up to the gift show, and when I realized that this was where it all started, I thought, what am I crying about? And started laughing. The end is the sign of the beginning. I realized that I couldn't cry, and when I spoke about my determination to continue, I saw my hand on the screen, which I held behind my back and squeezed with all my strength. I immediately made a peace sign, laughs. There was no deep meaning in this sign, laughs. But thanks to this, I was able to relax again, and I think I managed to convey my feelings. How do you feel now that you have finished the prologue? And what value or meaning do you think this show will have for you in the future? First of all, I am very glad that the audience accepted my ice show, in which only I performed alone, and that I was able to complete everything I had planned to the end. This gave me confidence that I could continue to try to follow this path. Thank you very much for the warm applause and words. There were many moments in my life that I still think about, but I do not regret anything. There are things in the past that I feel guilty about, but nonetheless, it is thanks to them that I have my present life, and thanks to this feeling I can choose to be happy now. There are moments when I look back at my past, at my life, and I want to cry. Both in a good way and in a sad way. However, now I feel like I did my best. It's the same with Prologue. I gave it my all, and every day I put my all into it. All my current feelings are expressed in this song. I'm invincible, I'm the strongest, so I'll be happy if you listen to the lyrics, the song and how it do sings it, and relate it to my feelings. My dream is the desire of everyone, everyone's dream is my happiness, everyone's dream is in my heart. I'm invincible with you from here. I just want to move forward and roll the programs harder and harder, so that they are as close to your hearts as possible, so that they easily penetrate your hearts, like a recipe made to order. I'm really happy if people just think that I'm good at skating and that they like it. I will continue to ride, as before, giving all my strength, giving all the best.